the crazy thing. Possibly one of the most intelligent and talented people on the planet. Like his hobby achievements and his personal achievements, just like, really, bro? Like, really? And then to be like socially adept on top of it, like he's a fucking unicorn.
It's annoying, isn't it?
It's so horrible. Like, come the fuck on.
I've I've seen him in concert like 3 or 4 times.
Right. See, there we go.
Then he goes
I
home.
don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about it.
Then he goes home, litigates a case, and then he comes on here and ties like the most beautiful flies. It's like it's not fair.
He's like, oh.
I have a theory that he actually has a twin brother, and that he hasn't told any of us.
No. So that would be like as ridiculous as these odds are already. That would take it from like 1,000,001 to like a gazillion-1 chance.
Right, exactly.
You know, you go from 1 in a million to 2 in 6 kabillion. Like,
if you guys haven't figured this out, we're talking about Johnny King and Jason. Jason and Lou and I are obviously quite jealous of his talents, but we have such respect for him, and he is one of the most fun people to go fishing with, and you know, love it. So Lou.
So I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna stay with Johnny for just a second. I'll tell you one little Johnny bit. So, but Johnny and I met, but like our Kevin Bacon in the situation is David Nelson. You know what I mean? He's like
Squimpish.
He's going on the show next year.
Right. So David sends me this picture of a fish. And I look at it, I'm like, and it's like, you know, text messages like the picture first, then it's a while. And I'm like, how'd you get that picture? And he's like, Johnny caught this fish like a couple days ago. And I said, I'm like, was it exactly? And I described the exact spot the fish was in. And David's like, how did you know that? Did you talk to him? I'm like, no, I caught the exact same fish.
Oh my God.
Out of this spot 4 months before.
Wow.
So one, I like to say that like, that's pretty cool. It was a really big, distinctive looking trout. And that's how you know, like really big, distinctive looking trout. I was like, that is the fish. Like it was no like at all like question in my head.
That's crazy.
Well, let's actually introduce the show tonight. So Lou,
yeah, because we could keep doing this forever.
And this could be the show. So I mean, you know, Jason, we're so happy to have you again, and you really graced our presence, and now this is the 3rd time, and we know you're going to be tying some really incredible stuff. But before we get to you, I just want to mention April 2nd, we have Blaine Chocolate on the show for the 2nd time. And again, if you guys haven't figured out already, this season's dedicated to the influences that Bob Popovics had on all these amazing tires and us.
Yeah. And we're really excited. And thanks to everyone for turning up and showing up this season. It's been an amazing season, and we're super excited to close it out with Jason and then with Blaine. And it's so nice to see so many of kind of the family here, so many familiar names already in the chat box here, and it's nice to see our previous guests, folks like Steve and Henry on here. So a lot of fun. And by the way, speaking of Henry, what are you tying there, David?
Well, this is kind of a splayed wing deceiver right here, and you know, Henry loves to have pink in his fly. And Henry, if you look right there, that's a whole load of pink right there under the olive. And of course, I like to tie everything with a splayed wing a la tarpon style because it just makes a seriously wonderful wiggle. And Lou, what do you have in your bite?
Well, this is my Henry Cowan tribute, because one of the many really interesting things Henry talked about when he was on a couple of weeks ago was just mentioned casually, like, hey, you know, those half and half, you know, Clouser deceivers, why does anyone tie them with with the feathers going like this? They should be like this, since they're the motion of the fly is up and down, and that like lit off all these light bulbs in my head. So I've been tying, David, how partial I am to half and halves. Often we
I
call them
do.
chowsers because I'm so partial to them. So this is my version of a combination of a cow and bait fish, half and half, and flatwing,
But
and I can't
Lou,
wait to fish it.
but Lou, did you really have to send me 30 photos of the flies you were talking
Yes, I did.
about?
Anyways, with that, welcome to our guest, Jason. Jason, thanks so much for being here tonight yet again. We're super excited. We've been looking forward to this. We've gotten so many nice correspondences from our friends online here, all of whom are excited to hear you tie, or to watch you tie, I should say. But but maybe before we do that, let's just get caught up. We had you on almost exactly a year ago. What have you been doing? What's going on in your life?
Uh, I was telling you guys before we kind of kicked off back in August, I had shoulder surgery, which is like really great. Facetiously, no, it's not great. But it had to be done. So there was probably a month leading up to that was like I need to do everything that I'm not going to be able to do without a shoulder.
Mhm.
So that killed fishing last year for the
Uh,
most part.
were you able
Um,
to tie despite that, or you could tie and just not fish?
eh, I couldn't lift. I mean, I couldn't do this
Wow.
I wasn't allowed to do that for 6 weeks.
Right.
Sheesh.
So then, like, once you don't do that for 6 weeks, you can hold your arm there for about a minute and a half
Mhm.
before you have to like
Yeah.
give it up. So,
Yeah.
um,
It's been a good opportunity to learn to tie lefty.
why? Um, so that was that, and yeah, and then I'm both foolish enough and fortunate enough to uh, volunteer coach 12-year-old boys
Uh,
soccer.
oh, nice.
Um, so that's a full-time endeavor uh, on a light week.
Yeah,
Herding cats.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I remember
yeah,
those days.
me
yeah,
too.
that's enough. And then, home projects and life and work and like everybody else.
Yeah. Are you going to be able
Yeah.
to fish this season now that your shoulder's on the other side of surgery?
Yeah, I mean, hella high water. It's
Oh, good.
it's happening. So,
Yeah.
I think that was really the only, not the only, but like one of the biggest motivations around doing the surgery. It was like
Yeah.
fishing till I'm old.
Well, we'll have to get you on the skip with me and Lou at the same time. You
Yeah.
think you're in it for tonight? Wait till you're on the boat with us.
That'd be
You'll
fun.
probably jump off halfway through.
So, so Jason, tell us about what you got there in front of you and how you're going to be tying tonight, because we're really interested. Inquiring minds want to know.
So, I worked, uh, I have to go like way backwards before we kind of go forwards here. So David Nelson years ago really incorporated the stripping of large fibered feathers to palmer through saltwater flies. And that was adapted basically from a lot of Northwest um, steelhead fishing, tying on shanks and tubes, where you could like strip the fibers from the stem and palmer them and then counter rib them, um, which are basically making woolly buggers, just like with different materials and and longer fibers. So, I picked that up and I was really using it more just out of the back of flies,
Mhm.
on like longer shank hooks, um, and like worked great. It's a really useful kind of technique for that. And then I'd done this series of like, again, off the long shank hooks with, feathers to make them longer. And then one day it hit me after tying like Beast Fleyes. What if I just palmered this on mono, which
Mhm.
Mm,
is not that easy, because you continue to go backwards And when Bob first started tying on mono, he put it between two vices, right? And then that evolved to like spinning a bobbin,
right, the bobbin
on mono. And that's kind of where it had stopped. So I went back and I like stretched, and not even stretched, but put a piece of mono between two vices and like just hand over hand got it done. Luckily, it's like a really quick process to build the back of a large fly. And I never really promoted it. I showed a couple guys that asked, but I never really promoted it because like who's got two vices and like who wants to like deal with that? And I think that's like Bob's fault that I didn't do that. Not that he didn't say, he said teach, everyone. But his thing was like if like everybody can't do it,
got it.
Like how useful is it really?
Right? I bet the vice manufacturers would have loved for you to show that.
Yeah. So we continue to go kind of forward. Bob's kind of evolution of tying beasts was like onto shanks, like Blaine uses. So like, student teaching teacher now. So Bob started tying on shanks, but he would still spin them in hand because he had a feel for it and it felt natural, and maybe it was harkened to like the original evolution of it to him versus just putting them in the vise. But it's something to be said about tying in hand. I mean, let's go back 150 years and like that's everybody tied in hand. So then for me, this palmering over a shank versus palmering over mono, now it's like much easier. And the problem for a while was like the shanks were just so heavy. And they didn't need to be like pretty hard to like twist up a piece of thin metal like that's doubled over itself and reinforced with glue and thread. So I wasn't comfortable with the heavy shanks. And so I just stayed with mono. So Blaine's got now really nice wired shank from his like line of products. And it's like the right thickness and they come in like a bunch of lengths. So like, the piece of mono here it's not a giant mono extension because the fibers of the ostrich are long. The piece of mono here is like, I don't know, 3.5 inches, and you can do it shorter or you can do it longer. So basically we're going to do the back end of this fly on a shank and, where it would take, I think most people an hour to tie the mono section of a beast. This is like minutes if you prep the materials ahead of time.
I cannot wait to see that.
It was good. It's a really fun pattern. It's a couple guys that tie them on mono now. Or, Matt Bailey. Yeah, I told him he was crazy for doing it, but he makes some really beautiful flies with this method. And there's a couple other guys that have tried it, but it's again, tying on mono takes a bit of dedication and like two vices. So
how long is that fly there, Jason? Roughly.
I
love the squid. This year is like this is the season of the squid on Masters of the Fly. I love it. That's a beauty.
I never measure flies. Like it's just so stupid of me. But like I don't know. It just feels like
guess. It's like 6-7 inches.
It's got to be 8 inches, right? 7,
well, let's see. I'll do the litmus here. Let's see. 1, 2. So that's 3 inches, right? Because my thumb is exactly 1.5 inches. That first joint, right? So what's that? 1, 2.
Yeah, that's more. It's 10 inches, 9.5 inches or so.
Right.
Yeah. This was the Price is Right. You would have won, Lou.
Yeah. Well, I was short of it, so that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a big. And this is here. This one on top of it. So now we know that that's 10 inches.
Yeah. Almost. They're pretty much the same. It's a big fly.
Yeah, big fly.
Awesome. Well, should we get at it? Maybe David and I will drop off the video so we can get everyone to see you nice and front and center, and we'll be heckling you from off screen.
Well, here we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do first.
Okay,
and I'm going to show. Obviously, I'll show you how to tie the fly, but prepping the materials here is like pretty key. and that you're going to take the ostrich and strip it from the stem, and then use what's left, the edge, as like a hackle. So,
Cool.
yeah. So
Cool.
the first thing I would do is like obviously like your ostrich plume, and I don't know, it was last year I showed like a 4 feather fly.
Yep. I think it was the first season actually you did the 4
First
feathers.
season.
Yep.
Um, it's like one of the things that's like there's nothing new in fly fishing. That's like the only pattern I think I've ever tied that I truly like call my own. So I cut the center out, and then I like get like a Pyrex of like warm water, or I have a mud sub and just fill it with warm water. If I'm going to do a bunch of them, I wouldn't mix colors. If I'm doing a bunch of them, like I would do like 10 white ones at a time, or in like, darker colors or colors that go together, because they just bleed when you put them in warm water. So you drop this in warm water, 10 minutes, and then
And that does what, Jason? That straightens them out? Is that what you're trying
No,
to
it's what you're doing is you're soaking the center stem of the feather, and you're softening the stem. And
so you can palmer it, right?
right. So like everyone's like peeled like part of a feather off by accident when they were like handling it. So this way you're actually going to do that on purpose. So you're going to it softens the stem so you can separate easier.
I see.
So then, here it is wet, and notice the top is out. Well, let's see. Hopefully it'll focus here.
Yeah, it's focused. It looks good.
So I want you to kind of see how close we can get. How's that?
Great.
It looks great.
So what you want to do is like, I usually like use my fingers as levers, and one side will come first, just naturally. And you may lose a couple in the beginning, but
wow.
So it's this side that decided to come. Of course, the left side. So
that's so cool.
Steady pressure.
How did you figure that out?
I mean, Nelson figured it out. And again, everybody's done it like by accident. So you don't have to have not Nelson figured it out. Nelson adapted it. Somebody in the Pacific Northwest figured it out. I mean, I would give him credit if I knew.
That's so cool.
So what you want to do is like not pull on the fibers, but grab the actual, like, the technical term is rachis, but the stem, and see how it's just peeling away slowly. And just take your time.
Really cool.
And
how long do you soak it for, Jason?
Like 15 minutes, maybe. Yeah. I don't think about it. I just kind of try to go and forget about it. But not much longer than that.
And Jason, we were talking about this a little bit before we went live. Like, we've obviously talked to you and a lot of other folks about how you pick, bucktail, for instance, or saddles and so on. What do you look for in ostrich, and how do you think about picking out the right ostrich for the application?
It's much like bucktail. You just have to look at like everyone you come across. Like 6-inch ostrich fibers are, without it being like the big, long, really gnarly, fluffy stuff, but like proper 6-inch ostrich fibers are rarer than 6-inch bucktail, at least in my opinion. But again, this technique kind of helps get around it. So I'm going to show this one more time since we have another side to do.
Yeah.
And so this time, obviously, like, you don't have anything to leverage off of, but if you get the top. And guys, I've done hundreds of these, so I always tell people, like, if you can get some cheap goose feathers, like seagull feathers that you find on the beach, like, you could do any one, and that's what I would practice on. So I broke it. But don't worry about it if you break it, because it's just like fibers that you can still use and cut if you need.
So the speed at which you're pulling is really important here, right?
So I would say yes, but if I did 5 of these in a row and they were soaked well, I'd be like,
okay.
It's more a feel thing. Like, you can tell if it's like about to pop or break, much like you can tell like that half a second prior to breaking thread on a fly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether you can
Usually
react
I
to it
can
or
tell
not
half
is
a second afterwards.
Yeah, I was gonna
well,
say the same
again,
thing.
whether you can react to it or not is like a completely different story. So
That is really cool,
That's
Jason. Look at
really
right,
that.
and
That's
so
so cool.
what I typically do then is just like I'll do a bunch of them and I'll just like take them and like I'll like re-dip them in water so they're like this, and I'll lay them between like paper towels to dry.
So you don't want them to dry out before you tie.
No, you do.
No, you
And
do.
what doesn't I don't tie wet ones because you can't see the fibers as well. I
Okay.
like dry ones to tie with. I'm sure you could tie with wet ones, but so then what you get at the end is like this,
All right.
right? And
Hmm.
so you can see how flexible it is, right? This one's probably even like a little bit better, if I wrap it around my finger.
Mm.
So what does that look like?
Wow.
Like a hollow fly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's so cool.
You can make a lionfish fly out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so that's the basis of it, and you can go as big or small as you want in the front. So I just started some thread on this guy just because I didn't want to waste time on the video. So what I typically do is take either some gel spun or some like 3/0 thread, and then you probably could use that for the whole fly. But I just like to get a base of that because one, it like takes glue really well. Two, like the shank is like bouncy and you can like pop mono pretty easily. I just try to get like a good open thread base on shanks, and that's any shank I tie with. Like, I typically close like smaller shanks if I was tying like a shanked like steelhead fly or something. I chip and close them and prep them with gel spun because it sucks up glue and you can crank on it.
Hmm.
And then I'll just go over that with mono.
Hmm.
And is that a Blaine shank there you're using?
Yep.
And how long is that one?
I want to say it's 80. It's a big one.
Okay.
Yeah. So we could start right with the ostrich. I typically like to um, get just a little bit of taper first. Yeah. And so then I'll look and see what's like the longest ostrich I'm going to use. So maybe like there. You probably could just start right with the ostrich, but I always start with just a little pinch of bucktail.
Hey, Jason, a
Again,
couple
to stab.
questions coming in as you're going here.
Yeah.
And by the way, reminder, everyone, feel free to put questions that you have in the Q&A box. If you put them in the chat, we'll find them as well, but it'll be easier for us to find them in the Q&A box. A couple things about the ostrich. So one fellow, Phil, was asking whether you've tried fabric softener in the warm water, and also, is there any risk to leaving it in the water too long?
No, I've never tried fabric softener, and if you leave it too long, it'll probably like really be too soft, and any pressure you put on it would probably start to break it.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely could say like something was over soaked, but I can't like definitively tell you that.
Yeah. And then there was another question which we kind of discussed a little bit, but the difference of quality in ostrich herl, he's saying that noticing that there are differences between brands and cost and all of that. And I know you were saying like you just look for what it looks like it has the right length and the right width to you, but are there specific brands that you steer away or towards?
No, it's just I don't. It's like bucktail. Like I literally look at every one I come across.
Mm-hmm.
You could
Is
pick
this
some out
one?
from a
Is this
distance.
one of Brad's bucktails?
Uh,
No, you
well, I
got it.
haven't touched. You mean ostrich or
No,
like?
I'm talking about the bucktail you're using right now.
Oh, this this is Brad.
That was the right answer.
Yeah, yeah. I was looking for an immediate yes.
I
Right,
no,
Brad?
I would tell you. I'll tell you why I had to think about it. This is really nice bucktail
Oh yeah.
because you see how crinkly it is,
Yeah.
but it's
Hmm.
not that soft.
Right.
Hmm. Can see that.
Um, I like these for like traditional beast flies because too soft hair just collapses.
Hmm.
Versus like I pick this up and I know it's Brad's right away. Like
Hmm.
you know, um, and not that there's not everybody doesn't have soft bucktail, but I kind of have a personal relationship with all of mine. Um, so you can add a little flash there if you wanted. Why not? A wise man once told me it was never like I don't know if I'm tying a bunker fly yet. Maybe I am. Wise man told me it was never like a bad idea to have like a little yellow in the tail of a bunker fly.
Mm.
And if you look at like bunker, like there's a little yellow in the tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of yellow. Who was
Yeah,
that
so
wise
that's
man? That was a wise
Yeah.
piece of advice.
Bob.
Yeah, I thought as much.
Yeah, so the yellow. So I keep like three colors of angel hair and one of them yellow for bunker tails. Um, so I'm gonna take again. We're just using this to establish some length. I'm going slow. I'll pick it up here. Um, you don't need a ton. This is gonna do two things here with this guy. Uh,
So you're going around 360 around that bucktail with a little bit of
it's a
ostrich.
little harder because shanks aren't completely round,
Right.
so it's a little harder to spread the bucktail evenly.
Got it.
You know, that's what we're
Beautiful.
looking for.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of mesmerized by how you're just tying this in. You're tying it in a little differently than I thought you would. So that's really pretty neat.
So, all right. So everybody's tied a woolly bugger, probably like the first or third fly that everyone tied in their life. And so a woolly bugger has a marabou tail, right? Has a tail.
Yep.
Um, that's classically about the length of the hook,
Hmm.
right? Um, old school woolly buggers, you tied the hackle at the front and wound back. It's the correct way. It's a reverse hackle, but no
Mhm.
one really ties them like that. Everybody ties the hackle in the back, winds it forward, ties it off, counter ribs it,
Hmm.
ties it off. So you're in the palmering three things. You're in the palmering a chenille, which in place of chenille, we're going to use some body braid, uh, a feather, right here, and then you counter rib it with a wire. And in this case, I'm going to use a little EP uh, flash brush.
Mm.
Mm.
Um, and so the last thing you do, right, you tie in first. So before I do that, I'm going to look and see length, like what starts a taper. So probably like right there, right,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. So we're going to probably tie in here. So we'll move up. You can use a regular wire. You can use uh, some other type of flash chenille, and you can use anything you want as your counter rib. With this, I like it because it puts flash through it, but it's pretty flashy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to take half of it off.
Hmm.
Does that keep you from having to brush it straight as you're palmering around, or just?
No, I mean, this stuff is so fine that, like, see, this is intact up here. I mean, it goes right back.
You're just trying to reduce the total amount of flash.
Yeah, just reduce the amount of flash.
Okay.
So then the next thing you would tie in would be your hackle. So, like any side of a feather, it's got a natural curve, right? So this one is curving this way. So I want to add it to where I'm going to tie it in, so that curves naturally backwards, right? If the curve was the other way, right, I would put it in differently, and that'll determine the way you palmer it. So one side of the ostrich, I palmer forward. A different side, this ironically is a different side. This side would still go on, here, but be palmered the other way.
Right.
Hopefully that makes sense. So anytime I'm going to palmer something, I want to try to mount it at 90 degrees. And then you go forward. So this is a pretty long distance, so we'll probably use pretty much this whole feather. And then we're going to tie in our chenille as the last portion. I could have started back, but it's not a bad thing to build up the diameter of the shank, much like kind of like tying a stimulator, where the shank thickness that you're increasing with like deer hair means there's more fibers in every turn of hackle, right? Because you're just palmering over a larger circumference. It also makes it a little easier to palmer versus just palmering over mono. And I'm not leaving any grooves or anything when I palmer. I'm just going to
How durable is that palmered ostrich in your experience?
Really durable, especially when you counter rib it. Ostrich is more durable than people think.
Yeah, what's the head cement you're using to tack everything down there?
What was I using?
Yeah.
Oh, like good old fashioned, like brushable crazy glue. I mean, it's all C8 glue, right? Zap-A-Gap, like Gorilla Glue, like CA is all the same.
Yeah.
All right. So that guy's down, right? And so then we're going to palmer the hackle. So what you want to think about is like this is going to build up in density. So you want to start with like wider turns and maybe slowly get closer, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just want the whole thing really sparse. But I typically start with wider turns. That does two things. One, it helps with your kind of taper, and then slowly make them get like a little closer together.
Yeah, for one of our guests out there, could you just tell us exactly what counter ribbing is?
Oh yeah, it's like when I'm going to show you next. It's basically like when you rib, something typically involves a wire, and counter means in the opposite direction of whatever you are ribbing again. So if I palmer something clockwise, I would counter rib it with the wire counterclockwise.
Right.
So just find that first turn and again, take a broad angle.
Well, it's quite a lot of space between each wind. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because it's going to cover. And now, like, I would like. It was like I measured the feather. It's the coefficient of like the diameter of the shank, the exponent of like the space between the turns. No, that's fucking luck. So, and then like getting its ass a little bit.
I was about to say pi r squared, but
Yeah, right. I'll tie it down. So this is the only next part. So you guys see where this is going, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's a woolly bugger.
I was gonna say it looks like a massive woolly bugger.
Yeah, because it is. Because that's all it is.
That's
so
hysterical.
You don't need to go like a turn for every turn. Like I try to get like a good bit of space between them. And honestly, I don't think it really matters if you like go the opposite direction or not. But
so not counter.
yeah, I don't think it really matters because you're gonna, as long as you like, especially if you like are going wide in your turns, you still don't want to trap any ostrich down. So that's what I'm taking my bodkin and like just clearing a path.
Patience.
Yeah, you know, the good thing about a wire, you can let it go, and it's because it's found the shape. Like you'll be okay. Again, this is the only tedious part. So imagine doing this on mono between two vices, and it's like bouncing around like
yeah,
like a grade school kickball. But not, not impossible. And that's like the biggest shank in the business. Right, this is like what's going on with the Q&A, because this is like
we've been covering it, but I can tell you there's some funny comments going on in the
give me something, because it's like
it's
got too quiet. Like I get
here's my favorite one. Throwing this fly in my next trip for Brookies.
What did he say?
He said he's throwing that fly in his bag for his next trip for Brookies.
Yeah.
Talk about they'll probably eat it. They're like the most opportunistic fish on the planet.
But Tom Fuda was hysterical. I know this is going to come together and do a great fly because it's Jason Taylor. But wow, gotta have faith.
Gotta have faith. Yeah.
Here's a question from Joe. Is there any downside to palmering the ostrich and brush simultaneously? I know I've seen that, like some people do that with buggers and stuff like that.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't do it that way, but
yeah. I guess do you feel you get more control when you can do them separately? And
yeah, I mean, again, you'd be like taking so many more turns with the brush too. I mean, just thinking about it on on the spot here. All
Um,
right, so
Jason, what
so
jaws are you using on that vise?
um, just the monster.
Okay.
I tell you what's the coolest jaw, and I'll tell you why. This is like the coolest jaw. If you have a regal, even if you don't tie dry flies, this little hook jaw
Hmm.
thing, it's like, and if you're tying like small shanks or like even like saltwater stuff where you want to get way deep into the bend,
Nice.
That's
it's
cool.
just super cool. Like,
What is that called? That jaw?
it's called the hook jaw for this hook.
Matey.
Totally.
A pirate's favorite letter, Lou?
What?
R.
R.
Yes.
No, the C.
Oh. Darn.
All right. So the thing about ostrich is like it never it's always going to lay down, right? So you're never going to have height out of ostrich on its own. Even like if you support bucktail, it wants to fall between the bucktail. So, you know, this is really a core or a tail.
Nice.
You know, so eventually it's going to come down to like that size. And that's what you have to think about when you're tying. Now, whether you rinse it beforehand just so you have a point of reference or not, or just know that like that's going to lay down like that much. Right? Any force or stripping it through the water is going to cause it to lay down that much. Pretty much the exact same build, pretty much the exact same density. And that's the core of the fly.
Wow.
All your taper is going to come from the bucktail.
Makes sense.
So yeah. So I mean that's like the that's the only thing different about tying it this way. And again, pretty quick way to build the back end of a beast. And you can, and knowing that that's as, again, as big as it's going to get, then you can determine, like, you could continue that shape and have something like a big pop mullet, you know?
Before somebody asks the question, what's the hook?
This,
Yes.
that's the beast, baby. That's the beast hook. That's the beast fly long.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can, again, kind of just follow the taper and make like a mullet or like herring fly. Same thing's true with like squid and mullet are pretty much the same shape. I kind of like tried to see if it shows. I put in like angled fibers to push through the hollows here, like flat, flared.
Yeah.
So the idea was to like make it bulb and go back in. And if I hold the fibers out, you can kind of see that.
Yes.
Just by pushing like bucktail on the sides and tops and bottoms of the hook to like flare through the hollows. If you put shoulders on it, they really move. So you can kind of do it whatever whatever you're feeling there.
We going bunker here. You put that yellow in the tail, so I think we're going bunker, right?
We're we'll going bunker. Yeah.
We'll tie it bunker fly. Yeah, we'll tie it super sparse too. So people want to stay here all night. It's a lot of hook, Johnny. So you could tie it in with like a wire or a piece of mono. I just usually take a little shank.
Oh, so you attach a small shank to that
Yeah.
Yeah.
tail? Yeah, that makes sense. That's clever.
Yeah, it is. You have the top of the shank that's like an anchor.
Yeah. There's no hook in the back. I mean, the hook's not remotely necessary. Um, I'll go over with some like heavier thread.
Someone was asking why you're not using the Regal shank vise. Is there a jaw or a vise specifically from Regal for shanks?
Yeah, there is. There's because I don't have one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean that I have three Regal heads and use them all.
Mhm. Looks like you didn't really need it there, right? I mean, seems
No,
pretty.
no. I mean it's and I would rather be able to like I have the stainless steel jaws, which are fine for like dry flies as well. But I would rather be able to like use the hook jaw for dry flies and not have another set. I mean, all the heads are so versatile. I mean, you can tie like I could tie a trout fly in here. You just have to have better thread control, but the stainless steel jaws
Mhm.
work for like up to like 3/0 hook, which is plenty big for most people.
How big is that
Um,
hook, by the way? That beast fly hook there,
that's a 6/0.
6/0.
Wow.
Yeah.
By the way, Brad Buzzy is endorsing your use of the shank to hook method.
He on there. Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
that's great.
Brad, you're not
Yeah, no, you got
endorsing.
Brad's on
You're
there,
not.
Steve Farrar's on there, Henry's on here.
Yeah.
Steve
I would say,
Farrar.
Brad,
Yeah.
you're not endorsing the use of the bucktail, Brad.
That goes without saying.
Yeah.
So, you say Steve Farrar's there?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
So my first show I tied at, it was like kind of classic. Uh, Bob calls me and he says, "You're coming to the show." I'm like, okay, it's this date and this date. I'm like, okay. He's like, we're good. And I'm like, yeah, we're good. This is what I'm going to do. Argue. So it was a show that Tony Frederick used to do, which is
The le
coming back.
uh-huh.
Lefties.
The lefty tie fest.
Yep. Um, and I get sat my tables right between Steve. I'm on the end, and Steve's here and Bob's here, and it was like awesome. Because I would always watch Steve's videos. Steve has like the best video, like fly time video voice of all time. I don't care what anybody says. Um, so we're gonna start pretty long, right? Because one, it's fun. Two, knowing that this is going to come down to here, the ostrich gives you the opportunity to start long and build your taper out. Um, and Steve's like, was like, you got any advice? He's like, yeah. He's like, just put a fly in the vise and talk about it. No one know you didn't just tie it. And he's like, and you could do that all day. And it just kind of put me at ease. It's like if I needed a break, just you put a fly in the vise, you kind of take a
That's
break.
awesome.
Like some of the best show advice I've ever gotten.
By the way,
But yeah, it was
speaking
like,
of the Lefty Fly Tie Fest, you know, where they were Tony's doing it again this year for the first
well,
time.
that's
And
the next thing I was going to say. Um, it's going to be a pretty epic event in Florida.
yep, I will
Yeah.
be there. Um,
Nice.
so excited to see you down there. That's for everyone who doesn't know, that's April. I guess they're doing a Lefty Cray, an airing of the documentary on Lefty Friday evening, April 25th, and then the event's on April 26th down in Vero Beach.
I may have to join you on this one, Lou.
You
I
should
think
come.
you know what? My plans may have changed. So I get back from the Bahamas Wednesday night. I might just hop to Florida instead of hopping back to New York.
There you go. Party.
Absolutely. You got an extra spot in your room?
Well,
I'm
this is
staying with a
classic.
friend, so no.
Oh,
And with
no.
my wife,
Yeah,
with
good
Oh,
Rachel.
answer.
yeah.
All right, so we're just tying. We're basically tying hollow fly now. So see, I wanted that pretty low, so it kind of starts to meet.
Yeah.
We'll just get a couple in. This is like the first. Take it back. The second. Second, if you want to call it a beast fly, the second beast fly I've ever like tied in front of anybody. I guess it doesn't matter. It's like rotten bite. If there's questions, I'm happy to help, and I'm just want to get through the shank part, and we can start talking about a little bit more about tying.
Yeah, I'm just going through lots of chat. I think we answered most things. There was a question about our about where you get bucktail, and we're of course pointing everyone to Brad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Brad
you know,
Buzzy.
actually, maybe when you know that I shouldn't dismiss that too quickly. And we talk about this a lot, obviously, on with you and others. But any advice? I mean, I know you're the master of finding sourcing great bucktail, but like when you're tying these types of flies, what are you looking for particularly?
So
Length,
it's all about
obviously, you need the length.
texture, right? So like once you get to a point of like you have to determine if what you're looking for in bucktail, like um stuff that's like really straight like that
Hmm.
for me is a very different use than like where you could just see the fuzziness from there.
Yeah.
So I think there's like X level of quality bucktail that you kind of find. And then from there, it has different characteristics. And they all can be useful. You just have to kind of think about what you want to do with them. There's is a such thing as like bucktail that's too soft for sure. Um, like some bucktail is more hollow than others, and you can kind of like tell when you feel it. And getting really shapely flies, that's really useful because that soft or more hollow bucktail flare, you can kind of really manipulate it where you want it. Versus something that doesn't flare is actually harder to manipulate into like position.
Right. Well,
Hmm.
Brad just made a comment to everybody. I have to share it. Coming from the man. Uh, Consistent texture, length, then color is what he said.
Yeah, right. Wonder if Thomas Fuda's starting to believe now.
For those who
I'm
don't
sure
know, Tom is the genius behind the technology of GotOne. So
yeah.
I could say the same thing about his code.
So could I.
That is true. That's a story for another night.
Another night. That's right.
David is our ultimate beta tester for GotOne, and somehow manages to find every possible bug to the point that I think Tom has nightmares about David most nights.
Every time I call Tom, I hear in his voice, it's like, what now?
Yeah, but you know what, Lou, you can attest. David will a bug into existence.
Exactly. It's kind of like
That's
what you're doing there, Jason.
Yeah.
yeah, well,
Ba-doom.
sort of. Can you move the camera just and back again?
Yeah, but it pays
So
off in the end. Look at this. Dead center.
yeah, so funny.
God, you make these hollows look so like you can do these in your sleep, obviously, by now, but they look so good when you do
The
them.
worst thing you can, I mean, I don't know, worst thing for me is like planning one. So now, like this section of fly is all like filling the profile. Like now we have to like do the real work.
Right,
But
right.
I think we can see that like we're here and we want to end up like something like that, right?
Okay.
What did Bob think about ostrich? Because you don't think of ostrich in his, typical hollows and beast flies. And I mean, I always see ostrich in your flies much more. And I love ostrich just because of the way it moves and breathes in the water next to the bucktail. But did he use it, or what was his thinking about it?
He used it a lot. Um, Again, Bob was like always wanted to make things accessible for people. So bucktail was,
I
like I
see.
said, there's
Interesting.
all bucktail has uses. So you can, it's easy to show someone how to do it with bucktail.
Hmm.
He's a consummate teacher.
So it wasn't
Um,
an aversion to the material; it's just his focus on
oh
simplicity.
no, like it's kind of the exact opposite. Like his early silicones had a ton of ostrich. Like there's a fly that Ben Wally talks about, that Johnny King talks about, which is just a clouser made from ostrich that sat on his table and bench.
Hmm.
He encouraged me to use it. He actually used to make fun of me. So in Philadelphia, you have the Mummers Parade,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hmm.
and these costumes are like a big thing. And he would always say that I would like go down New Year's Day and like sweep the streets and like get all the free ostrich.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
and I would always ask, if he needed anything whenever I saw him. He's like, "Well, no, but let me see your ostrich."
The first time I saw ostrich used for saltwater flies was Lou Tabery.
Yeah,
You know, like 30 years ago, I don't know, he put a fly in my hand and it was all ostrich and a little bit of bucktail.
yeah. Um, this will be, I think, one of our last long longs.
Mhm.
That's a pretty color.
That is.
Brad's giggling. That's a fucking buzzy tail.
Yeah, we have some folks asking about Brad Buzzy's sort of uh, website, etc. So I'm gonna put the link
Yeah, we can put the link
um,
up.
Yeah,
in
but
the
he would tell
chat.
you to come pick. He would tell you to come pick him out in person because Brad does the right thing in that sense.
Brad, I need to come visit you, my friend. I need to up my collection, but I just
Well,
put
I,
it in the
I,
chat for
I
everyone.
was lucky enough to visit Brad at the Long Island Fly Fishing Expo a couple weeks ago and picked up a couple of more things as if
And
I
how
knew.
many and how much did you pick up for me?
Well, I got a cute little thing here that I got from Brad. Wait, I want to share this with you. I picked up some sculpting flash fiber in mackerel, and I don't need it all, so I'm definitely giving that to you.
Well, thank you, David.
Yeah,
Appreciate you looking out for me.
you're here. Listen, Ringo. There it is.
Okay, so you're just again building that taper of the body. As you said, that this is where the real work begins because you really want to make sure you're building the right taper as you go up towards the
Yeah,
head, right?
notice like I haven't gotten dents yet on this fly. I mean, they still got
And
really good.
how important is it to you to tack down each section with a little bit of glue? I mean,
If I
Johnny,
what
Johnny,
if I
Johnny
wasn't
doesn't tack anything down.
who?
Johnny King, he doesn't glue anything down as he goes through each of his layers.
Yeah. Um. So it certainly makes for a more durable fly. Um. If I'm being honest, when I teach and do things, I do it every step. If it's just me, I typically will do this in the front of a dam.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, Yeah.
That's interesting.
And that, like, not only is it secure the fly, it actually lets me build the dam in a much smaller space
Hmm.
instead of going out and in and out and in.
Why, that is looking so good.
Very sexy.
Okay. She's getting there.
Yes, Henry just said Tabery did the classic snake fly with ostrich.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fly I put in my hand.
So I want to get some density, so maybe I'll just leave the butts in here now.
Is there a particular length you like those butts or
Well, to start, I think probably right there, and then you'll get it kind of increasingly longer.
Mhm.
It's using like a friggin' firecracker. It's gonna be awesome.
Hmm.
And are you, I know this is kind of hollow fly 101 again, but just remind me
Okay.
again. So as you're going towards that head, is you want to get more flare, you're leaving a little more of the butt there when you tie it in to get the dam to flare it a little bit more?
Well, I want density. The flare happens by like how many wraps I make in front.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Like, so I'm really just after density, almost like I called the called them hollow bulkheads or like reverse bulkheads.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It's kind of how I like affectionately have called them.
Lou, I don't know if we answered this question about thread control. I mean, Jason, do you want to address that at all?
Yeah. So I mean, all types of thread work, right? I use mono. Um, I like how mono reacts to like natural materials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always think about it as like a leader, right? So if you're trout fishing, you have a little short leader, you're gonna break it. If I like lengthen my leader, like I get more stretch out of it.
Mhm.
So I'm really applying pressure, I'll like lengthen the thread. And if I really want to get exact, and even when I go to flare, like I'll slowly lengthen it as I apply pressure and spin the bucktail.
So what you're stacking with, it's not a Bic pen, which is what I use, but what are you using?
It's a big pen, it's just a logoed one.
Henry has a very important question for you. He says, for those of us not living in Philly, who really makes the best Philly cheesesteak?
Uh so there's like levels of cheesesteaks. And what's the it's like there's levels of beer. Like what's your favorite shitty beer? Um, you know. So
Right.
my favorite cheesesteak comes from Campos, which is a really cool old school story of a sandwich shop that was next to an elementary school for years. And that's kind of how they made their bones. And then the elementary school closed. And then from there, they opened a independent shop. Now they're like, which paid off because it led them to like be in the stadium. And so that's my favorite cheesesteak. It's like good provolone cheese, um, seeded roll. So that's my favorite.
And
Other contenders. Delisandros, a lot of people like
And
Pats and
Cynthia,
Ginos. I mean, they're tourist traps. Lou, your daughter went to school here. Did she ever like eat a cheesesteak?
You know, she that's a good question. I don't know which was her favorite. We've been to them all, but she's a little more of a fine food person than a cheesesteak person.
You're
wait,
being nice to her right now.
since this is Pennsylvania, are you washing it down with a Yingling?
Yeah, Pats and Ginos, maybe. Yeah.
Brad was
No, I want
suggesting
like
a
a I want a
PBR.
proper like black cherry wishniak
Yeah, okay.
with my cheesesteak.
So I hope Tom realize now is starting to see the light here. Oh,
Is he
Tom,
still on?
he just messaged. He said cheesesteak is fine food. My bad, Tom.
There we go.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm getting hungry just looking at that fly.
so much. You know,
So
somebody's asking now, and I mean, we could all probably answer the question, but the beast fly, um, how do you fish them? Sinking lines, floating lines, intermediates, you know?
uh so you fish them all types of ways. It depends. I think you fish them like for any scenario that you're in. Like a lot of people, if you're on a boat, like and you're fishing under huge schools of bunker, like you put the thing on a black line and let it go, right?
Yeah, right.
Um, I fish mostly on foot, so I fish an intermediate line. Um,
Any tips for
and then
casting a fly like that?
with intermediate line,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you just have to. I mean, there's not a lot of fly here to cast. I mean, it looks like it is, but there's these are, I dare say, like even easier to cast than a traditional beast fly in the same size.
Oh,
Like where people think ostrich holds a lot of water as it gets wet, what you have to consider is like how much water it takes to soak the ostrich,
Mm-hmm.
hmm.
which is like a thimble,
So
right?
can you cast this fly with an 8 or a 9, or are you going a little bigger?
I mean, I fish a 10 pretty much exclusively in the salt because why not?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like you wind, the same thing, like land the fish faster. Like imagine you fishing a 9 weight for albies, which I'm sure plenty of people do, and like from the rocks and maybe having a 10 weight means you catch two fish that
Mhm.
month and
Mm-hmm.
like or in that particular blitz or when they happen to pop up or having a 9 weight means you catch one.
Right,
Right.
right. Plus, you probably exhaust that fish more. And what
Yeah.
about
Yeah, I mean,
do you use a shorter, stiffer leader with a fly that size to
oh
get it to
yeah, I
turn?
mean,
Yeah,
listen, if a fish is eating this, man, I
they're not
mean,
going to be leader shy.
I mean, come on,
Yeah.
like, and then beasts were always not always special situation flies. That's what they were intended for, you know.
Yep.
Listen, the majority of plug fishermen, even like with giant bunker around, are fishing 5-inch plugs.
Right.
I mean, sure, they're moving a lot more water, but like,
Unless they're fishing the dock.
right. Well,
Yeah.
um, so it's not like a searching pattern. I mean, and they're so durable. Like 5 will probably last most people their lifetime.
Mm.
And I say the same thing about bucktail for your average fisherman, right? Like at least like if you're foolish enough, like I am, to like volunteer and coach soccer and have shoulder replacement, and like how many flies do you like need? How many durable flies do you need? Like so, like three like bucktails, like lengthwise and texture wise, like could be for the right person like a lifetime of flies.
Mm.
Just have to know how to use them.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more ties. So again, I'm stretching. And I'll be a slacker at the end, 'cause I think that more people should. A lot of people have a hard time finishing these flies, like any hollow fly.
Why is
Sneaking that
that?
last hollow in.
Yeah.
Right. So
That's a beauty.
go down to the bottom of your bucktail.
Mhm.
There's all that shit you never use. And grab some of it. Grab like a semi-aggressive amount. Screw it. Grab an aggressive amount. Like you never use this for anything. That like, look at that hunk,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Clean it out. Jam that thing over there. Light her up.
Mhm.
Right.
And just get out of your own way.
Without cutting the thread.
A lot of falls in there. So when I like pretty well finished flies, you would be surprised at how many flies I finish like this. Because you kind of get really dense. Use that tail you never use. Right? You can still manipulate it the shape you want. That's where that soft, flary, hollow bucktail, you can kind of again manipulate it.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
That is great. Just love the mixture of color.
Can't wait to get Jason out east this summer to fish that in June.
Oh my gosh, yes. No one's sending questions or writing. Everyone's mesmerized by this final product here.
They're like, who is this hack?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
So
Wow,
Wow.
look at that.
Wow.
Look at that.
Now,
all of that's gonna
this one you didn't put eyes on. What's your philosophy about eyes?
I don't think that they truly matter, especially in large flies, but I like them personally.
Okay, that's just beautiful.
And I know
So
we've talked about this before too. What's your do you soak these? What do you think about in terms
oh
of
I just rinse them under some cold water and that will like set the shape and let some of the air out of the bucktail and get that ostrich to lay back in like the position that it's eventually going to be in anyway.
I'm just going to say this one out loud. Mark Fitzpatrick, I agree with you 100%. He just said, I'm amazed at how many ties you get in such a short area.
Oh, that's just like tying too many flies.
Mhm.
But I'll be honest with you, like I I tied dry flies, trout flies well before I ever tied like any proper large saltwater flies.
You and
And
Johnny. Yeah.
those like principles really guide your tying,
Mhm.
like being able to like I wish the light wasn't so hot. Um, being able to tie in small spaces and not waste thread wraps. So now you get a better idea of like truly the profile here.
How long is that compared to the other one you were showing? It's about the same length, right? We were measuring it before we got on.
This is probably 2 inches
Little,
longer.
okay.
So we said this was between 9 and 10.
Yeah,
So
so
this
that's
is
a 12-inch fly.
yeah. And I mean, we were yapping away and still took not that long to tie, I don't think. At least didn't feel that long.
Awesome. Ben Wally, that wasn't a question, was it?
What did he say?
Maestro, JT, that is gorgeous.
Wild dog. Thanks, bud. Yeah, so
Awesome
I mean, I'm happy
stuff.
to hang out, but it's a weeknight, so
Yeah.
everybody's.
Well, I think, maybe David, let's come back on the screen because thank you so much. I mean, what an incredible, it's just, I know I'm always mesmerized just watching what you do, and it's incredibly inspiring. I know what I'm doing tomorrow. But and we talked a little bit about Bob as you were tying, but as you know, and everyone here knows, we're sort of doing this season as a tribute to Bob. And so I wanted to ask you the same question we've asked all our guests this year, and then all our guests that we've had on have some connection with Bob. But just curious to hear your thoughts on what he meant to you, on what you think he means to the sport, and anything that our audience can take away in terms of his legacy.
I mean, I can't say much that hasn't been already said. I don't think. I mean, Bob meant a lot to the community as a whole, and a ton of us as individuals. He's ultimate. I said kind of cultivator of kinship in the sport and bringing up those that he kind of felt responsible for, and honoring people that were ahead of him through respect and acknowledgement. So, I mean, those things are, I think, go without saying. And, there's hundreds of stories of kindness and encouragement from him to, all of us. And he was really honored to be able to teach people and show people kind of things he discovered. And he actually had a way of teaching you things without trying to teach you things, even beyond, like, obviously he was a great teacher with intention, but a lot of things you learned from Bob, you learned just by talking to him and his experiences. And if you paid attention, he had done it, like I credit one of the best fishing days of my life to a conversation I had with him 10 months before, where he was kind of describing his journey. Because obviously, like, early days of saltwater fly fishing, there's a lot of naysayers, and so he sought out the most difficult conditions that he could still fly fish in. And that was an interesting conversation, both from a experience point of view, because there's a lot of things you would never think about doing to set yourself up for success when it's like super nasty in your own foot with a fly rod.
Yeah.
Whether it be casting angles and timing of like the storms. And that led me to like kind of like watching for like certain conditions. And like one day, just really based on like that conversation, saw what he was describing kind of like in a forecast and a beach I'd been to a bunch of times. And it was fucking lights out. And it was blowing like 25 out of the northeast. Just lights out. Like full 6-foot breaching albies 20 feet in front of you. Just crazy.
Wow.
And I called him that afternoon and was like, yo, it's on here. And he went the next day and it was like, you couldn't even come close to fishing it 24 hours later. Like, couldn't even walk out.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
those leading edges of those storms can be really exciting.
so the other thing he did often without, like, he would challenge you. And another story I've told was the first time that I tied in front of a club was um, his club, and Brad invited me down, and Brad offered me a bucktail, and he actually gave me two. He's like, you can pick one, and whatever one you don't want, you give to Bob. So like I had picked the bucktail after looking at the two, and I give the other one to Bob. He's like, wow, this is really nice. He's like, this is, and he's talking. He's like, wait a second. He's like, this is the one you're giving up. He's like, let me see what you kept. So that started an argument between he and I about like which of the two bucktails were the best and why, and it went on and went on.
Brad Buzzy
And
saying he has a picture of you with both of them in Bob's hands.
I need that picture. I need that photo.
We're gonna need that, Brad.
Yeah. So, but right. So, as funny as that situation was, the bigger lesson is he challenged you to have reasons and think. Right. In my heart of hearts, I still don't know if he really wanted the bucktail that I had and was trying to dupe me, or just playing devil's advocate, or just because that's the one he had, it was the best, or if he truly felt like it didn't matter. Whatever was surrounding that emotion in that moment, the bigger lesson was like, continue to challenge yourself, continue to observe, continue to like have a reason in not only your tying, your fishing, in your life.
I love that.
So
That's
do
amazing.
I. Wow, this really has been an incredible evening with you, JT. I mean, you know, watching your process and leading us through the fly step by step has really been quite incredible. And I can't thank you again. You really have you wowed us for a third time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, you are truly a regular here. We're so honored to have you on our show. As David knows, when we started thinking about doing this, during COVID, when we were looking for ways to actually get people together still around tying, you were one of the very first names that came up. And we're really honored that you've been part of this thing for as long as you have. So
It's a,
thank you so much.
it's always a pleasure and an outlet for me. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome.
Before I forget, I want to thank everybody out there. Lou, for us, you sent out a little memo last week for people to write in about false albacore. And
Yeah, so maybe
before I
give a
forget, I want to thank everybody who did write in. It was a huge help.
yeah, thank you to everybody who wrote your letters to Mass DMF. It's we don't have the final verdict yet until I think April, but I think there's a really good chance that we will have two states in North Carolina and Massachusetts that for the first time in history will manage false albacore and bonito as managed fish, which is an incredible achievement, and is a direct result of all of you in the community weighing in and making your voices heard. So thank you to everyone. It's incredibly exciting development. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm pretty excited. I think this is what's coming down the pipe. We'll see what actually happens, but that sounds like what's happening.
And Lou, one more thing before we go. Do you want to put up the slide for GotOne? Because every little bit counts, and if people want to be supplying their data to Mass DMF
Yeah,
and
sure. And let me put up our slide here in general. I actually, well, a couple things. So, I won't put up the slide, but I'll put it in the chat here.
Great.
We do appreciate, I know many of you are aware of and using the GotOne fishing app. But for those of you who don't know about it, I'm putting the link in the chat. It's just www.gotoneapp.com. It's an incredible tool for tracking your catches. It's been endorsed by and used by the top guides around the country and by supported by the American Saltwater Guides Association. David is our high scorer in terms of number of fish logged on GotOne, but it's just a really fun way to track your catches. But just as importantly, we share all of the data with the location generalized so that no one can burn your spot. It's not a spot burning app, and anonymized, but we share that aggregate data with research organizations and science organizations, including Massachusetts DMF, which is spearheading the regulations on false albacore and bonito, which really helps those agencies to manage and protect the fish that we love. And for those of you who haven't seen the incredible research that MassDMF has done, for instance, on striped bass, catch and release, handling, and mortality, a lot of that research came out of the data that all of you who use GotOne have provided. So it's just a really great way to have a fun app that helps you really as an angler. I mean, I built it because I wanted that app and no one had made it to date. It's a great way for you to keep track of your catches, to have a really great efficient digital log of your fishing with all the environmental data automatically added to it. But it's also a great way for you to give back to the scientific community and to the scientists and researchers who are helping to protect our fisheries.
And I got to tell you, the update's really cool.
Yeah, so thanks to Tom Fudo, who's on here tonight. We've just added mapping to GotOne, so you can see every catch that you've ever logged in GotOne on a map. Only you get to see it. It's not shared with anyone else. You can upload photos of your catches going back in history. And as long as you had location services turned on, if you took them on a smartphone, for instance, it'll map them. It'll give all of the data, environmental data related to that catch. So I have a lot of fun. I've been going back over years and uploading dozens and dozens of photos of fish and remembering where I caught them, when, what the conditions were. Yeah, download it.
That might be the only way you catch up to me.
I'll never catch up with you, David. So anyway, thank you everyone who's used it. We're really touched by the incredible outpouring of enthusiasm about the app. So with that, so, David, I think
here, one second.
Yeah,
Brad actually sent me the picture.
Oh, do you want to put it up?
I'm going to try to see if I can share the screen.
Okay.
All right.
And while you're doing that, everyone, don't forget April 2nd, the Chocolate Factory. And
plain chocolate.
More fun. Let's see. Jason's trying to share screen. Oh my God.
Oh my God. I love it. So which was which?
I'm taking the one on the right.
You're not telling us. I'm taking the one on
which
the
one
left.
You think's the best, David?
I want the one in Bob's right hand, but I know you took the one in his left hand. Look at that thing.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Brad. Appreciate that. That's really cool. What a great way to end it. And actually, Jason, if afterwards, if you send that to me, I'm gonna make sure we include that in the video broadcast of this. So thanks to everyone for joining us. Huge thank you to Jason. We look forward to seeing all of you April 2nd.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody.